Hey there, welcome to Jet Setting with Jackie. If this is your first time here, welcome. And if you're returning, thank you so much for coming back. In this week's video, I will be talking about what it was like looking for real estate in Jamaica. I know in my mortgage video, I mentioned that I would be making a video on my real estate shopping in Jamaica. Without further ado, here it is. Let me start off by saying that as with majority of Jamaicans that go overseas and live there and decide to come back home, we all know we have to come back here and either find some land to build a house or purchase a house to live in. I was no different. And coming back here in February of 2021 was the first time that I actually started to look at real estate. So I came down in February of 2021 for a visit, and during that time I went and looked at some land that was available for sale. I wasn't really sure where I wanted to live at that point in time or exactly what I was looking for. I just knew that I wanted a piece of land that had views from the ocean. That way when I wake up in the morning, I can see ocean. Like, that was one of my main requirements for land. I wanted to buy a piece of land and build my dream home. I had a very rude awakening. When I came back down in May of 2021, I started looking at lots both in St. Anne and in St. Mary. And these lots, most of them did have sea views, but they were up in the hills. And I don't mean close to the main road, off the main road. The lots that I looked at, some were in the hills of Drax Hall, Gibraltar, and Pyramid Heights. The ones in the hills of Drax Hall were really nice. They were close to the main road and had some spectacular views of the ocean. Now, unfortunately for me though, I was about 2 years late because the majority of the lots up there were already sold out, and some of them were now getting resold at a much higher value. So lots that were purchased at maybe 40,000 USD were now being sold for like 80. The lots in Gibraltar were not really what I was looking for because the view of the sea was not the best. It was not a good view at all. And the one that actually did have a really nice sea view was outside of what I was looking to spend. There were lots listed online in Pyramid Heights that were for sale, and I went up there to check out the lots, but of course the ones that had really nice views were already sold, and the ones that did not really have a view of the sea was still available, and I thought the price was just a bit too much and it was not really what I was looking for. So I left Jamaica and I went back to the US, but I knew that while I was away I was gonna have to really start doing my research and checking out where the lots were located that I would really like, and start putting a list together for my next trip back. Before coming back in July, I was introduced to my first realtor in Jamaica. I sent him a list of all the properties that I was interested in seeing and let him know that I would like to see them when I returned to the island. When I got back to Jamaica in July, the very next day I was on the road looking at properties. I'm on my way to look at some property. months of October and December, I really kind of put a pause on my search, and I was also traveling at that time, so it really didn't make sense for me to start looking for properties online, because what I did realize is that when you find something online, most likely by the time you actually get to it, it's gone. After the holidays were over and the new year was about to start, that's really when I decided that I wanted to get back into my search and really get serious about looking for a place to purchase here. And that's also when I started my mortgage process. So if you have checked out my mortgage video, then that will give you an idea of when I started this journey. Back on the 31st of December was when I filled out my mortgage application, and at that point I knew I really needed to start looking for somewhere, because now I'm actually serious and starting my mortgage process, so I needed the property to go with the mortgage. That same day I went back up to Pyramid Heights, but really to Pyramid Point this time, and I'd been there to look at the houses before, and trust me, they are nice. My only gripe about Pyramid Point was the fact that I couldn't really do anything else with the property. I kind of would have to just keep it as is, and I wanted to find something that I could put my own touches on or even expand on it if I needed to. So I did check out their property again. I think I was starting to come to terms with the fact that I might need to let go of the land dream for a while, or I needed to also let go of the unfinished property dream for a while and look for something that was already made, even if that was just to end up turning it into an investment property in the future. But either way, I needed to get something at this point. So I did check out the houses at Pyramid Point, and I also checked out the ones at Ocho Rios Country Club. Both nice places. Of course, I would definitely give Pyramid Point a much better rating as far as the way that their houses were built, the quality of the items and the material in the house versus what I saw at Ocho Rios Country Club. I definitely felt like the countertops and cabinets and, you know, just the finishes at Ocho Rios Country Club was a little bit below the standard of what was at Pyramid Point. So definitely felt like Pyramid Point, if I was going to choose between the two, Pyramid Point would be what I would have went with. I still wasn't certain about either one. I wanted to keep my options open, so I kept on looking, and in January my mom actually reached out and asked me to check on a property for her. All right, I'm back. My camera overheated on me. In January, my mom asked me to take a look at a property for her that was located in Plantation Village. I met with the realtor and we went over there and I saw the property. When I saw the house, I immediately fell in love with the neighborhood and the house itself. I love the fact that it was unfinished, but it was also a portion of it was livable. So in my mind, I automatically was like, this is a great property. So I even said to my mom, if you don't want to purchase this place, I definitely am interested. I loved the fact that it had a 1-bedroom apartment upstairs that was completed and it had a tenant in it. And it also had a portion of it that was downstairs that had a 2-bedroom and a bathroom. So I knew, hey, at least if I can move into the house while it's being completed, that would save me on rent, as well as, you know, I could still get to finish the house and put my own touches on it. So I was really excited about this property. About a month or so later, the property was on hold for whatever reason. I'm not sure, but every time I would look at the status online, it said it would not be back until, I believe, either March or April. I ended up reaching out to another realtor because my old realtor was out of the country and I wanted to continue to look at properties while my mortgage process was still going on. So I met my second realtor, who was on top of the job. He was always there when I needed him. He would send me properties all the time at all hours of the night. I used to wonder, like, when do you go to sleep and when do you wake up? Because I know when I wake up in the morning, sometimes I have a bunch of properties to review, which I definitely appreciated. So at least to me, I knew that he was invested in me trying to find a place and was working hard at it. The first property that we looked at was a townhouse over at Savannah Vista, which is the community that is directly across from Bahia in Runaway Bay. Those townhouses were, in my opinion, a bit small in size for what I was looking for. At that point, it was like the more I looked at properties, the more disappointed I was getting. It was like I couldn't find what it was that I was looking for land-wise. I couldn't find what I was looking for unfinished-wise. And then I just couldn't find the right finished house either. At some point, my realtor and I were discussing properties, and I mentioned the one over Plantation Village, and that was one of the only houses that was a decent price that I was really interested in, but it was not on the market. He told me he would reach out to the realtor to discuss like the reason why it was not on the market and get back to me. At the end of March, we finally got the house under offer and basically started to get things going. Now, at that point, that was about 4 or 5 months, give or take, until I needed to have all of my items shipped to Jamaica. So if you haven't already watched my shipping video about my 40-foot container, definitely go and check it out. But at that point, I knew I had to get my items onto the island and I needed somewhere to put them. Getting this property over Plantation Village would work out perfectly because, one, I would have a place to store all of my items that were coming in a container. I would be able to move into the 1-bedroom section upstairs and use the downstairs portion that was finished for storage. So in my mind, that would have worked out perfectly. I would be able to bring my items onto the island and also move into a house all in one shot. I was ready to go and just get this process going. In order for me to get my mortgage completed, I would have to get an estimate from a contractor. That way the bank would know how much more funds I would need to get the house completed. I also needed to get a valuation report done so that I could give that information to the bank and a surveyor's report. Maybe it was just being overzealous and getting the advice from my realtor at the time. I started to move ahead with all of those steps. That way I wouldn't be waiting. I wanted to get as much completed and ready to go. That way the process would not take any longer than it already needed to. We went ahead and scheduled the valuation report. We scheduled the surveyor's report and the estimate for the bank. In the midst of all of that, there was a tenant that was living at the house, and between the tenant and the landlord, there was a bunch of drama. During this time, the tenant and the landlord were having issues with each other, so that ended up creating a mess for me because my valuator and the contractor were having a lot of difficulties trying to get into the property to get the valuation report done and also to get the estimate completed. With all the mess between the tenant and the landlord, maybe a month into the process, that's when everything came to that screeching halt where everything just stopped. I didn't know whether my process was going any further with the sale. It was a lot. It was really, really a lot. In hindsight, everything worked out the way that it was supposed to work out, but I'm not gonna lie, it was definitely a hard pill to swallow, a hard lesson to learn, and it was not good that I lost money during that process. And that's definitely money that I will never recoup. This was the point in time when I decided maybe it's time to just take a break from looking at houses or doing any searches or anything like that. Maybe I needed to go back to the US. I don't know. That was just my thought process after going through this experience. At that point, I gave my landlord notice that I was going to move out of the house that I was currently living in. My realtor was also sending me properties to look at and trying his best to kind of get the search back on track, but at that point I really wasn't interested and I wanted to just take a break from it all. I really do think me taking that little mini break really gave me time to reset, and maybe that's why I ended up in the house that I am in right now. So on May 29th, I just happened to be on, I can't even remember which newspaper it was, but it was some newspaper online. I was reading an article and I ended up on their real estate site. Not sure how I got there. I just gravitated there, I guess. And that's when I first saw a listing for a property and a phone number for the owner. I messaged her on WhatsApp and she responded, and we ended up scheduling a viewing for me to see the property. And on June 3rd, I first set foot in my current home. I wasn't expecting to like the house as much as I did when I saw it, because when I first saw the listing online and I knew that it was a 2-2, I kind of automatically was like, I don't think I really want to do that, because I wanted a minimum of maybe 3 bedrooms, just because I know I could use the extra space. But after seeing the house, I was actually pretty surprised. Like, I really liked the house. I surprised myself. I really did. And I brought my little sister with me when I did the viewing, because she was here visiting. And the first thing she said to me when we got back in the car was, "So, how did you like the house?" And when I told her, I was pretty excited, like, oh my gosh, I see the potential. I see all the things that I could do with it and where it could go. I have space to build on it if I really wanted to. So I was pretty excited. And she was like, oh, she actually had the reaction that I thought I was going to have. She actually was like, well, I mean, I guess I understand where you're coming from, and now that I hear what you're saying, I get it, but I didn't think you were gonna like it. So not only did she think the same thing, I kind of was thinking I wasn't gonna like it at first, but I think it was more so the potential and the possibilities of the house that really drew me in. So some of the things that really made me fall in love with this house was the fact that it was in a great location. I was going to be close to all the things that I needed: supermarkets, beaches, gas stations, grocery stores. Everything is within driving distance and not very far. The drive to go see my family is long, but it's not that long. The community itself is very nice, it's beautiful, and of course the price was amazing. I definitely feel like I lucked out on this property. I'm happy that I got it when I did, because I know that the potential for this property to be valuable in the future it's there. It's definitely there. I do feel like I made a good decision when I chose to move forward with this property. Another plus to all of this was the fact that the house was vacant. I was able to talk to the owner about possibly renting the house while I was in my buying process, because again, I had to move out of my current rental days later. I think this was June 3rd when I first saw the place, and I had to be out of my rental by the 18th of June. So in a couple weeks I was going to be moving out of the old rental. So this basically came at the perfect time. I was able to just transition from one property to the next. By the time I moved into this house, I literally did not even spend a night here. First of all, there was no furniture, there wasn't anything, and the house that I was renting prior to this house was furnished, so I did not have any furniture or anything in this property. So I left Jamaica days after renting the house and never spent a night here. It wasn't until I came back in August that I actually got to spend the night in this house. During the months of June and July, my attorney and my loan officer, they worked super hard to make sure that this deal went smoothly. The seller and I worked together on everything. I could not ask for a better person to do the deal with than the previous owner. She was awesome through this whole entire process. And coming from crazy landlord lady to crazy house buying process that just happened months ago, to this person, it was definitely a breath of fresh air. It was, like I said, I could not have asked for a better sales process. So I wanted to share some things to think about while you're doing your search for real estate in Jamaica. The first thing to do is to make sure that you get yourself a really good realtor. The house that I currently live in, I did not end up needing a realtor to find this property and help me with the sale because the house was being sold by the owner. So she didn't have a realtor, I didn't need a realtor. We definitely needed an attorney, but we'll get to that in a second. If you are looking for property in Jamaica, it's a good idea to have a realtor, and I mean a good one that knows the island. Mainly because sometimes, especially when it comes to lots, they are not the easiest to find. Like, we've had directions. I'm gonna put a picture of the directions here where it's literally like it's next to an almond tree and then the other line stops at the lime tree. So there's no markings. There's a lot of the lots are off the main road. So if you don't have someone that knows where they're going and you're looking for property, you could be lost, or you won't find it because it's very hard to find. Another thing about realtors in the US are typically on top of your requests right away. They're coming to see you the next day or that week. In Jamaica, it's not always that way. You might reach out to a realtor and don't get a response back. Like, at some point, I felt like they were doing me a favor by helping me. And I'm not speaking of the two that I actually worked with. I'm speaking of others that I may have reached out to inquire about a house. And it felt like they didn't want to sell the house because they weren't trying to help. It was really crazy to me. Make sure you do have a really good realtor that knows the island, knows the place, and is willing to get up and come out and help you when you find something, because not all of them do. Another thing is to make sure that you get yourself a good attorney. They're vital in this process when you're conducting a purchase in Jamaica. You cannot do it without having an attorney. They take care of all the transaction parts. They deal with the seller's attorney. So get yourself a good attorney. I will leave mine in the description box below. He's amazing and he'll get the job done. Another lesson that can be learned from my experience is to not put any money out until you are in a signed contract between all parties. Not that you've signed the contract and you've sent it off to them. Wait until they send that signed contract back. That way you have much more of a leg to stand on when things do go south. My situation, I was in the process. My contract portion was signed. We were waiting for the seller's attorney to return documentation with us. We were going through the hassle of whatever issue the seller and their tenant was having, and all while I was paying for things to be done on the sale of that house that ended up not going through. So do not put any money out until you have a signed contract from the attorney of the seller and you guys know what your agreement is going forward. I had to learn that lesson the hard way. Hopefully you don't have to. Also, if you are doing a mortgage, please start your mortgage process prior to looking for a house, because the way that things work in Jamaica, a mortgage can take a pretty long time to get done depending on who your banker is or who your loan officer is. Start your mortgage first, then look for property. If you're doing a cash sale, you don't have too much to worry about, but if you're getting a mortgage, definitely start your process early. Another thing to learn from my experience is to be open to what it is that is available. Because yes, I started out this journey knowing that yes, I'm gonna come to Jamaica and I'm gonna buy a piece of land and I'm gonna build my dream home and rah rah rah. That did not happen. So I ended up having to open my mind up to possibly finding something that was unfinished or finding a house that is finished. And even though this is the option that I ended up with, where I purchased the property that was already built, I love the house. I know that I can expand on it if I want to, or I can leave it as is and use this as an investment property in the future. So has my dream of owning land in Jamaica been totally dashed? No. Will I still build my dream home in Jamaica? Absolutely. And actually, I found some land. Well, I didn't find it. The land found me. And more on that will come in the future. But just know for now, the dream of building my home in Jamaica is not over. Stay tuned for that. I hope that this video has been helpful, informational, and giving you some insight into what it's like to look for real estate in Jamaica. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to hit that like button. And if you have not already, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button and make sure you turn on that notification bell. That way you'll know when I've posted my next video. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, bye.